It's a long one because I think we need to have the bits. Tell us what you think of the wars in Iraq and Afghanistan. In particular for each, was it justified? Was it legal? Was it competently handled? For Afghanistan, it looks like the Taliban are evil and Karzai is becoming a more dictatorial head of a corrupt government. What would you do from here and why?
Gosh, there are several questions in there.
So if we start with it,
let's start with Iraq. Was it legal, justified,
legal,
and competently run?
Handled.
Okay. Was it justified? The first Gulf War after Iraq invaded Kuwait was unquestionably justified because it invaded another country. In fact, Iraq has invaded, I think, 4 out of 5 of its neighbours. Was that particular war justified? It was certainly not justified on the grounds that we were told it was justified, the weapons of mass destruction, because we now know absolutely clearly that they never existed, and even if they had existed, they certainly weren't 45 minutes away. So we were, and it's a strong word, I think we were not told the truth on the reasons we went to war with Iraq, and had we been told them, I don't think Parliament would have voted the way it did, and I don't think this country would have accepted it. So that answers the was it justified. Was it legal? The Chilcot inquiry, I think, has been going through that. There's quite a lot of evidence from the Chilcot inquiry that suggests the Attorney General, who is ultimately the government's law officer, changed his mind on that. And it looks as if he had his arm twisted so far up his back, I think he was almost in 2 pieces. So I suspect it was close to illegal, but that's not for me, I'm not a judge to decide. Was it competently managed? I think the invasion was successful militarily, but of course nobody had planned for the peace. And we failed on that, because we should have known that these things are always much harder when the battle has been won. That was a real failure. After that, I think the military, did a great job, and we have been able to exit with a degree of honour, because it looks as if the Iraqi government has control of the country, not completely, but it looks as if it has control, and it looks as if some form of democracy is gradually being established. I think it'll be fragile for a long time to come. So that's Iraq. Afghanistan is so complicated, and it's difficult for me to be completely detached. My niece, my brother-in-law, and my elder sister's stepson have all fought there. The men in Helmand and my niece have been based at Kandahar, but flown all over the country. And it's horrific. My sister's stepson said that they were under fire every day of the 6 months he was there, and they 3 times had to fight the Taliban off at bayonet point. This is not something we should really be preparing young people to do when they leave school or university. And most of the people fighting are aged between 17 and 35. They're young people with their lives ahead of them. And I just don't think that the Labour government, and I'm not criticising them because they're Labour, but that they happen to be the government, made these decisions without really understanding what you're doing when you declare war on another enemy. This was not war on Afghanistan, this was war on Al-Qaeda. I think they looked at it in terms of a big foreign policy alignment with America and drugs and the war on terrorists, but didn't really think about what the consequences are for the humans involved. So where do we go from here? One thing we cannot do, if we have a new Conservative government, we cannot go in on day one and say, right, we're pulling out of Afghanistan. That would be a massive, unacceptable insult to all the people who've died there and their families and all the rest of it. But what we have got to do is be absolutely clear about what the mission is and how we define success and when we pull out. And I don't think this government has done that. And clearly it's all about training the Afghans so that they can run their own country. Are they going to be capable of it? I mean, you raise a very good question. I mean, is Karzai going to be a sort of corrupt dictator, buying off various allegiances and alliances with tribal chieftains to sort of keep himself in power? It doesn't look very promising at the moment, but institutions can grow, they can develop, and we've got to hope that we can achieve that gradually over the next few years and not have people at forward observation points miles up a valley in Helmand province under constant attack by the Taliban for years and years ahead.